There are some things best described as horrific events. There are disasters that no pony that has ever lived through them will forget. And then there is one event that will happen today, when the cakes buy a Starbits coffee machine and invite Pinkie Pie and Twilight Sparkle to test it out. Pinkie Pie Discovers Coffee by Chris Spartan 117.
The hallway to the second floor of Sugar Cube Corner was quiet, almost eerily so. There wasn't a noise to be heard, despite how there were 2 newborn foals and a notoriously hyper-pink pony in one of the bedrooms. As the cakes came upstairs, it was music to their ears that there wasn't any commotion so far. They opened the door to the twins' bedroom to catch them asleep in their crib, with Pinkie Pie standing watch over them, looking a little sleepy herself. She perked up when she saw the parents come in, and shut the door behind her.
"Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Cake," Pinkie Pie whispered. "I thought you were going to be gone a lot longer. You said you wouldn't be back until 3, but now it's only 2:15. Did the ponies in the baking contest not like you two?"
"Oh dear, no," Mrs. Cake responded. "They thought we were wonderful judges, but it wasn't as long as we thought it would be." "But that's not the best part," said Mr. Cake. "We came home to tell you that we finally got the catalog." He reached into a bag resting on his back to reveal a catalog for cafe products. The title was Getting a Better Day's Rest, a listings of cafe products 2012, and had a picture of many goodies like coffee cups and cupcakes for a cover. "Ooh, does that mean we're selling more stuff in the corner now?" asked Pinkie Pie. "We have so many treats to choose from, like cupcakes and carrot cakes, like your names, and all the ponies say to me, 'I love these cakes, Pinkie Pie, thanks so much!' But if we sell more things in the corner, even more ponies will go out with smiles on the way out, and who doesn't like to smile?" "I know I do," laughed Mrs. Cake, never tired of Pinkie's imagination. "How were the foals while we were gone?" "Wonderful. They're getting better all the time, and I only had to use 1 bag of flour today." "Flour?" puzzled Mr. Cake. "What were you doing with that bag of flour?" "Oh, it's just for baking cakes. I promise that's all they do. After all, their bodies are growing up, and now they can know all about cakes." The cakes bought the excuse, and looked back to see the foals sleeping soundly. They agreed to pay Pinkie the agreed amount of bits, as she escaped outside the corner, saying something about needing to be part of Twilight's latest experiment involving manes. They sighed once they were alone, grateful that Pinkie appeared to be getting better all the time at this foal-sitting business. Not wanting to wake Pound Cake and Pumpkin Cake, they went downstairs and brought out the many jars of bits out, labeled expansion money on each one. "It's finally time," he smiled over to her. "Can you believe it? After all these years of saving up, we finally have enough to look at this and buy something." "I can't believe it either," she said. "I'm really proud of you. Now let's see what we can buy. But what can we get out of these products?" "That's the best part of waiting this long. We can get almost everything on this catalog, and as many things." Eager to see for herself, she flipped through the pages and eyed the prices, and it was true. There had to be thousands of bits in their inventory just for this, and nothing was above 1,000. They could cherry-pick whatever they wanted and it wouldn't be a problem, but picking exactly what was trickier than they imagined. There were entire pages full of items they were already carrying, particularly in the pastry section. It was odd because the catalog went with brand names, and occasionally they would even see their own name in it, successfully franchising some of their best-known items. Then things got a little more interesting. There was a section full of things they had never had before, in a section called The Cafe's Choice. Here they found such things like coffee cakes, bottled drinks, and coffee drinks. "Honey, what do you think about this coffee business?" she wondered. "You mean those drinks loaded with caffeine?" he responded. "I haven't had a cup of coffee in years, but I remember in college I used to drink them all the time. I had to pour a bunch of sugar and cream to like how it tasted, though. It wasn't worth the trouble." "This Starbits brand says it comes with all of that inside the coffee, and you're supposed to serve it with all the sugar and cream inside. That's how their machines work." "Can I see that? I haven't heard of a coffee maker like this before." She pushed the catalog down the table, and he looked over the Starbits section. The illustrations of what the drinks were supposed to look like were a complete 180 from what he remembered. They were in towering cups, and had so much inside that it was naturally white, the sign of a good cup of coffee. Ah, how they first met. "I don't know about this cupcake," he admitted. "It is expensive to carry, and that's something we'll have to pass down to the customer. And we built this brand on cheap prices and good food. But I've heard what's happened to other ponies that carried Starbits before. They got a lot of business come in, and we can always keep the rest of our menu." Now he was going to have to think about this, and he trotted back and forth, trying to weigh the pros and cons of the move. He knew he would still have money left over, but if he voted on this one, he wouldn't have this much flexibility again for a while. But then again, he heard the stories too, of the business cults getting richer when they let customers carry Starbits. "Fine," he groaned. "But are you sure we'll get more ponies coming in if we do this? We'll be the first in Ponyville to have Starbits coffee. That's big, you know. They're all in Canterlot and Cloudsdale right now." "Really? Then I'm going to place an order for that machine right now."
"Stay still, this won't hurt,"
Twilight said, trying to keep Pinkie still.
"But I don't know what that machine does. Does it zap ponies with a huge laser? Sprays them with gas and keeps them from sleeping for years? I don't know!"
Pinkie Pie shouted. The massive machine took up almost half of Twilight's first floor, pointing down at a table with what looked to be a pin at the end. She tried in vain to strap Pinkie down, only for her to hop out of her grasp and hop around, looking at the many blinking lights on the machine.
"No, it doesn't do any of that. It's perfectly safe," Twilight explained. "It's part of what could be a breakthrough in main technology, one that could change all of Equestria." "Oh, when you put it that way, I want to see what this is. Maybe you can make it poofier?"
Twilight shook her head, and finally got the pony to strap herself in. With the maniac ready to go, the unicorn went up to the ladder going high above, and found a dial going around. There it had the color wheel in all its glory, and she turned it to the color blue. She proceeded to press a gigantic red button next to the color wheel, and the machine began to hum. The noise was quiet to start, and got louder by the second, until Twilight had to cover her ears to not lose any hearing. The laser emerged from inside, pointing straight at Pinkie's mane. It was red-colored at first, until it cycled through all the colors in the wheel before landing on blue. It widened to cover all of the table, Pinkie disappearing in one big blue laser light. The light was almost as bright as the sun, yet she didn't complain at all through it.
"Hey, this kind of tickles! What do you use to make this machine going?"
"Gems and magic, Pinkie!" Twilight responded, using a spell of goggles to cover her eyes. The whole room was immersed in the color blue before fading away at last. Everything went back to normal. Twilight's goggles were burnt to a crisp, and she discarded them away, climbing down to see if her work paid off at last. And it did! Pinkie held up a mirror to see her mane had turned from its naturally pink shade to a dark blue.
"Wow, now I look like... Wait, I don't know many ponies with this kind of blue mane. Colgate has blue, but it's not all blue, it's white too." "Yes, it worked!" Twilight exclaimed. "I can finally change the color of a mane! This is going to be great!" "But you already can change a mane's color already. It's called mane dye." "I know about that. However, if this works like I want it to, you can change it permanently. You'll never need another bottle again."
Pinkie looked at the mirror, looking back at her new blue mane.
"Actually, can you change it back to pink for me? I really like it pink, and pink's in my name after all. After all, I don't think Pinkie Blue has the same ring to it." "No problem. I just hope I don't set the house on fire. It does make a lot of smoke."
And there we go, it's all finished, Mr. Cake said, as the brand new Starbits neon sign lit up on the storefront window. It had the image of Celestia looking at the viewer, her hooves lifted up and pointing at her head, with a flowing dress on and coated in green all around. The sign said, "We proudly serve Starbits coffee, for yet another great selling point for the bakery."
"How does it look, honey bun?"
Mrs. Cake asked from inside, propping a door open to hear his reaction. "It looks amazing! You were right, this was the right choice," he said, coming in to take a big look at the new steel-plated coffee machine. "I had one of their lattes and it was delicious. Who do you think will be our first customer?" Right then, Pinkie Pie and Twilight Sparkle came in, with their whole bodies covered in ashes from head to hoof. They waved to greet the Cakes, thrilled for some odd reason. Maybe it was how Pinkie's hair was back to normal.
"Good heavens, girls!" Mrs. Cake gasped. "What happened to you two?
Do you need to go to the hospital?
It's nothing, Mrs. Cake,
Pinkie assured.
It's just that Twilight wanted to be a mad scientist for a day, and I said, how do you want to experiment on me today? And she said, I want to permanently change your hair color because I'm crazy. And I went along with it, and the machine worked, and I even had a blue mane. But it's a very big machine, so when she changed it back, we had to go through 3 fire extinguishers. Don't worry, though, she only lost 1 book, and it was an evil book on this scientist named...
Twilight had enough, and shut Pinkie up with a hoof in the mouth.
What she's saying is, we're fine. We had a good time.
Then the shine from the steel coffee machine parked in front grabbed her attention.
What's that?
That is our brand new coffee machine, Mr. Cake boasted. It's the latest addition to our menu, and it makes all kinds of coffee. Latte, frap, plain coffee. It's something we agreed ponies like you would like.
What's coffee?
Pinkie asked. He opened his mouth to answer back before the thought hit him. Pinkie Pie with a cup of coffee. The idea of such a hyperactive pony with a whole cup of caffeine in her system. Mr. Cake almost fainted at the mere idea of it, before answering, It's a drink made of these beans, you see, and they're all mixed together to make a drink full of caffeine. Caffeine helps you keep all that energy you have, and if you're really tired, it can help you keep awake.
That sounds good. Can I try it first?
He gasped when he heard those words. It was going to happen whether he wanted it to or not. He looked back at his wife, and while she looked as grim as he did, she nodded, acting as approval to put Ponyville in danger, and go ahead and make her something anyways.
Are you sure you want one? You might not like the taste. But I just looked at the menu, and it says you use milk for that frap. That's the best thing ever. Milk is tasty, and frap is fun to say. Frap, frap, frap!
Fine, 1 frap on the way. What flavor? She looked back up in the menu, seeing all the flavors.
I like chocolate.
With the order of doom made, he went over to the machine. This could mark the end of Ponyville, and he knew it. He went ahead and put the settings on, ordering it to make 1 large chocolate frap. The cup was placed in the dispenser, and it would take a while to make, delaying their final moment a little longer. It was a relief to him, as he wanted to enjoy this final moment with his wife. She came over and they hugged tight to each other, like one would before being shipped off to war. Twilight Sparkle didn't get this at all. What was the big deal? She smiled as the machine whirled, making her first cup of coffee ever. She didn't know how it would taste, which just added to the excitement. Would it really taste like a chocolate bar? Or would it taste like melted chocolate, which is just as yummy? All the possibilities, and it was going to be great! After several minutes, the machine toppled the whipped cream on top with chocolate syrup, the final step in the process. Mrs. Cake pulled back and watched in tears as Mr. Cake pulled the frap out and put it on the counter to within Pinkie's reach. There, 1 chocolate frap, he wept. I'm so sorry it took this long.
What? That's not a problem, especially when it's this good, Pinkie reassured. Now let's dig in, every pony!
She stuck a straw through the layer of whipped cream and right into the sugary goodness. With her mouth watering, she stuck the straw in her mouth and took 1 large gulp of the stuff, the caffeine going inside her body and empowering her energy. The cakes dove under the counter, preparing for the worst. They held on to each other, praying that Celestia would take their lives early, so they wouldn't have to see a destroyed Equestria. But nothing happened. There was nothing but peace, quiet, and Pinkie saying, Yummy! They came back up to see Pinkie still with the frap, still looking happy as ever, and Twilight still having no idea what was going on. Wait, you haven't exploded yet? Mr. Cake asked.
Nope,
Pinkie responded.
What about the caffeine?
Don't you feel any different? Mrs. Cake asked.
A little. My stomach feels like it's got a bunch of ants crawling around, and they're the most hyper ants I met. But that's it.
Shocked and surprised, they wiped the sweat off their foreheads. Well, Mr. Cake said, I think this is going to work out after all.
Yes, indeedy. It's really delicious. It does taste like a chocolate bar. I want this every day if the ants calm down. It does look delicious, said Twilight Sparkle. You think I could have a sip? Of course!
She handed Twilight the cup, and the unicorn used her horn to bring the cup over to her face. She took the straw in her mouth and took her own sip of the masterpiece before giving it back.
Wow, this is really good, she noted. Now I really should go back and dust off all that. Oh my Celestia, I love you guys!
Suddenly, Twilight became a living ball of energy, exploding up into the air and launching straight for the cakes. They were taken off guard as she tackled them to the ground, her pupils shrinking as she became the horror they were afraid of.
Oh my gosh, I just thought how awesome it was that you have coffee!
Twilight ranted, slurring her words together.
It's coffee! I can stay awake all the time now, and it's all thanks to you!
She leaped over to the counter and into the table area.
I love coffee, yes I do! In fact, I want more than two! How about we dance? And I swear I'm not in a trance! Twilight, you're sounding like Zakora now,
Pinkie noted, as the cakes fled for their lives to the second floor.
I'm sure that's nice, but do you even know you're rhyming? Of course I don't, because now I know coffee is the answer to everything! What is 2 plus 2? 4 coffees! What is the center of the universe? Wherever coffee is present! Dear Princess Celestia, I learned about the magic of coffee!
The unicorn lunged and crashed her way outside the window, raving like a beautiful lunatic about coffee to any pony that would listen.
But silly is fine! Silly is the best mood to be in because that means you can make people smile! I know!
Screamed Twilight from outside.
I can conquer every book in days, and that means I can use the new free time to learn more about friendship!
Just then, she felt something piercing her neck. She pulled it out to see it was a tranquilizer dart. When she looked up, she found Mrs. Cake inside with a tranquilizer dart in her mouth, aimed right at Twilight.
How dare you! I will tell you something! Nobody ever stops his new coffee, Twilight! I'm coming after you!
Twilight bent down on the ground and leapt for Mrs. Cake like a jaguar. Mrs. Cake screamed as the unicorn got closer before Mr. Cake picked up the gun and shot another dart at Twilight's belly, causing her to fall to the ground, snoring. The whole area was unclear, unfocused in a shade of bark brown. Twilight didn't know what she was looking at, but she could feel the air around her head was really cold. She rubbed around her horn, only to realize there was a bag of ice on the top of her head. As her vision slowly came back to her, she was starting to see the color pink in a small shape. She blinked her eyes many times, and finally made out Pinkie Pie standing in front of her.
You're finally awake,
Pinkie joyfully said.
I gotta say, you snore funny. No wonder Spike is always tired. I couldn't nap either. What?
Twilight mumbled.
I'm back home? Yeah, the cake shot you with some gun that makes you sleepy. Don't worry. They only want you to pay for a new window, a new Starbit sign, and never to buy coffee from them again. That sounds awful, Pinkie. How is that supposed to be good news? I already paid for everything.
As her vision came back to normal, she rubbed her temples with her hooves, the ice bag really helping with the headache she was getting.
Why would you do that? Did you know how you were when you were really hyper? More than me, I know that. You're the only pony that could do everything I want to do, and even better than I. How's that supposed to help me? I hated that. I didn't have any self-control. Silly head,
Pinkie Pie said, while dropping a huge frap in Twilight's lap.
I'll teach you self-control, but right now, drink up. I have a whole schedule ahead of us.
The end.